Let's move on now and talk a little bit about some interview etiquette. All right, these will be quick ones. So just going down the line here. Show up on time, or better yet, early. Be 10 minutes early if possible. There is no need to be 45 minutes early to your college interview, just because when you're that early, you might even run the risk of making yourself look desperate. And additionally, that'll probably only stress you out. If you're hanging out in the interview lobby for 45 minutes, you're really just going to get in your own head, and you don't need to do that. But be a little bit early because, again, you want to make sure that you are not the limiting factor if the interview, God forbid, has to start late. This applies also to virtual interviews. You want to make sure you're ready to go before the actual time starts. So carrying on, dress properly. Make sure you can what the dress code is beforehand, and keep in mind that it is always better to be slightly overdressed than to be slightly underdressed. That being said, be aware and steer clear of extremes. When I was interviewing, I would immediately form one if they showed up in flip-flops and cargo shorts and shirts with and like a tank top or something like that. If it was casual, that would give me the impression that this student didn't really see the importance of this interview and wasn't really putting in that much effort. That being said, a three-piece suit with a tie is a little bit off-putting as well, because this isn't a job interview. And again, I approach all of my interviews like a conversation, and so being that formal gave me the impression that the student wasn't really willing to engage in this more down to earth. So strive to be in the middle or slightly overdressed. And if you can find out information about the dress code, then absolutely abide by that. Next up, we have your phone. I would recommend just turning your phone off. Do not disturb is great, but just turn your phone off for the duration of the interview, because you certainly don't want it buzzing or ringing during an interview. But just turn it off. Turn it off, and you can turn it back on after you're done. And then you won't even be thinking about it. Next up, we have practice giving a firm handshake and making eye contact. This is very important because, again, along with dress code and along with showing up on time or early, this is a sign that you are invested. And in this case, not just invested in the concept of the interview itself, but invested with the person who's taking time out of their day to interview you. Firm handshake, you don't need to claw grip them, but again, demonstrating that you are a confident individual, you are willing to look this person in the face and engage with them, because that's going to set the tone. That first impression is going to set the tone for the entire interview and the initial perceptions that this interviewer is going to have of you. Next up, names. Know the name of the person who is interviewing you. Say, hello, Mr., Mrs., Doctor. It's really nice to meet you. Thank you for taking this time to talk with me. If you are not sure about how to pronounce their name, ask them, could you pronounce your name for me? Better to let them say it to you one time than you to try and mess it up. But again, this doesn't need to be super complicated. It's just, it goes a long way to show that, yes, I took the and I appreciate you and the time you're taking out of your day to talk with me. Next up, along with practicing your answers, also practice body language. Lord knows you don't want to be flailing your arms around wildly while you're interviewing. Hand gestures are normal, though. It is totally reasonable to expect that you will talk with your body as well as with, of course, your voice, but make sure that your hand gestures are not distracting to the interviewers. So you want to keep them contained, but you can, of course, use them for emphasis. No one's expecting you to stand straight and not use your body at all when you interview. There is a happy medium there that you can strike. In terms of posture, sit up straight. Be sure not to slouch. Again, you don't need to be rigid, and we encourage you to not be rigid, but again, composure, a sign of maturity, being in touch and in tune and being confident. Work to make sure that you are not fidgeting or tapping your foot. I do this all the time, but I try not to do it in interview settings, because when you have a sort of a nervous habit, oftentimes these are nervous habits, and it can be a sign that you are on edge. And if you're on edge, that will put your interviewer on edge. Next up, smile. This is because not just because it has been clinically demonstrated that smiles are in fact contagious, and that there's some scientific explanation for this that I would not know, but apparently biologically and evolutionarily, your smile will actually work in a subconscious way to put your interviewer in a better mood as well. In addition to being self-fulfilling for yourself, right? It has been proven that when you smile, it actually does release, I believe it is dopamine in the brain. And at the end of again, this is also a sign of engagement, that you have it together, that you're ready to engage and you're excited about this. And this will make your interviewer happy. A lot of the times, the best interviews that I had made me happier, and that was because the other person was invested and smiling, right? We love to see happy people. That's a great thing. Now, last note here, post interview, send some sort of a thank you. Mention something specific in this thank you that you discussed in the interview. Memory will help them remember you. That's important as well. I have received everything from emails. So sometimes people would ask for my email and they would use that to send me a thank you email. I've even gotten letters which were mailed to Yale's Office of Undergraduate Admissions addressed to me thanking me, but some form of a thank you. Again, to the extent that this is being written toward an interviewer who took time out of their day to talk with you, is really appreciated and goes a long way. And again, can also have the added benefit of jogging their memory if you mention something that you talked about specifically. And the best letters that I received all made sure to do that. Say, I really appreciated talking with you about Khalid and current R&B music and how it really ties into my interest in singing in college. I would be like, and I would think to myself, yeah, I do remember that. That's right. I remember who this is. And that was helpful.